because change takes a lot of energy and you can't do it when you're burnt out, when you're tired, when you're wiped out. And it's little changes with the food that gives you the vitality, which gives you the energy, which gives you the growth, which makes you stand up strong to do mastery so that we can all become leaders rather than followers.
Step into the world of success with your brand amplified, the ultimate podcast designed to unravel the intricacies of thriving businesses. I'm your host, Annika Jackson, and I'm on a mission to uncover the stories, strategies, and secrets that have propelled entrepreneurs and business leaders to success. I am thrilled to have a different kind of interview and conversation today, one that really has to do with your health, self-discovery, and making sure that you're primed for all parts of your life through Pilates and other techniques that our amazing guest, Nisha Srivastava, is going to talk to us about today. Nisha, thank you so much for, first and foremost, waiting to come onto the podcast and for being here at the perfect time when we're all stressed out, right? It's the end of the school year almost for those of us with children or who teach, and we're looking forward to summer perhaps, but we also, there's a lot going on in the world that can cause a lot more stress on top of our day-to-day.
There is, Annika, and I'd like to thank you for the opportunity of having me on your podcast, but we also learn more from our problems in life than we do from the things that go right. So all problems are an opportunity for growth if we use them in the correct way.
Yeah, so please expand on that. And also let us know, how did you get into Pilates, yoga anatomy, and all of the other teachings and the way that you put them together?
I went to dance college as a student and I trained in dance and drama. And the dance I started teaching, and I had a very small spate in Bollywood and also acting and doing extra works and little bits and pieces. I worked as a magician's assistant. When I started to teach, Pilates was the natural follow-on from dance. So I went into it at 27, and I was actually one of the first people in the northwest of the UK to bring apparatus to the northwest in a group teaching manner. And then from the Pilates, I went into yoga, anatomy, cadaver, dissection, because nothing works in isolation, Annika. So there's a beautiful old song saying, the knee bone's connected to the leg bone and so on. Everything has a connection. So, it's great to look at things in isolation, but we are all integrated beings. We are human beings with emotions. So, that's where the blend came. But I'm known as Pilates Nisha, and that's my expertise and my specialist.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you for sharing your background. So talk to us about the comment that you made that we can learn more from the difficulties and the problems.
Well, there's a beautiful quote, Annika: never let a crisis go to waste. I'm going to say that again. Never let a crisis go to waste. So we've got two ways of looking at problems in our life, in our job, in our surroundings. We can either choose to let things happen to us or happen for our growth. So you'll know yourself, Annika, every problem that you've experienced in your life, whether it's divorce, business problems, bereavement, we actually learn more from those problems than we do from things going right. And definitely for me as a business owner, I actually learn more from people complaining than things going right.
Interesting. I definitely think that the times of my biggest growth opportunities have come out of the things that you just mentioned. I'd love to hear about some of your situations and how that impacted your growth and your opportunities positively.
Yes. So for me, Annika, the glass is always half full rather than half empty. And we hear that quote thrown around a lot, but very few of us, actually put that into action. So when things are going right in life, and here in the UK at the moment, the sun is shining, it's easy to do the exercise, do the mindfulness, drink the water, have the salads, look after our health. But it's when things are really going wrong and we're pushed to the limit is when we are super challenged. And that's when you need to step up as an adult and really take responsibility for the choices that you make. So every moment of the day, we are faced with a choice. So it's how we respond. So my background really is, my brother unfortunately suffered from mental health back in the old days, and these things weren't spoken about then. When I was 27, he unfortunately passed away very early. He was a dental student at studying medicine, but that actually made me the most amazing person that I am, because from the bereavement, I started to ask the question, why? And this is where your, deep development as a human being can come, because you start to question things in life and, wonder what is the bigger picture. And then that's really where I started my journey from Pilates from there.
Yeah, amazing. You've helped shape the bodies and the health of some very prominent people, from Sting to Cirque du Soleil performers, Belinda Carlisle, Will Young, Sir Ian McKellen, names that we all know. How did those come about? How did you build up your practice to achieve that level of expertise?
Well, everything is word of mouth, Annika, and people don't come to me for my ability to do a full press up or my ability to stand in, the matching top and the matching bottoms, the ability to teach. And when we look at it at a deeper level, everything that goes on the outside in life is actually a reflection of our subconscious. So when we are doing the inner work, abundance comes, and we have to be careful, because people talk about manifestation, but they actually don't understand it. So sometimes what you want, actually becomes the worst thing, because you actually attract the crisis. So, we always have to have a dream, goal and legacy. But if you're not careful, you'll attract the opposite of the dream, goal and legacy, which is the worst thing you can imagine. So if somebody wants, just for an example, £1 million or £100 or $100 in their bank, and they have $0 in the bank, and they're always in scarcity and always worried and living in that fight or flight, they will end up with the crisis, which is always to have nothing. So we have to do the inner work, and the universe keeps showing up and keeps giving us message through all different ways until we learn that path. And unfortunately, some of us won't learn.
Yeah. So word of mouth. And were these people who come into your studio regularly, you were helping them get in the right mindset for a specific role?
Well, most of the people who visit me were actually touring in Manchester. So when they're touring, they're looking for a form of rehab or movement that they can do while they're performing on stage, which keeps them strong, which keeps them supple, which keeps them focused, and also breath. Everybody forgets about breath, but on the hierarchy of survival, the mind comes first, because what we think is what we become. But if you can't breathe, you die. So the breathing is everything. And Pilates was never, ever meant as an isolated sequence. It is a full body method. It's mind-body connection when properly understood and when taught as a system.
Yes. And that is such an interesting point, because I'm in the States, you're in the UK. Over here, I've gone to many different Pilates instructors, and most of the time it's just taught as a fitness exercise. It's not, maybe there's a little bit of talk about the other connections, but it's not a fully integrated system. So I think that's a really interesting thing for us all to consider. And also that shows, when you think of it as a full system, that is also helping create those connections to, why are we talking about Pilates on a business and branding show? Why are we talking about this? Because we need to understand these connections and how this relates to our physicality, but our inside, our emotions, our shadow work, everything else, and then how that reflects on our businesses, on our personal lives.
That's very true, Annika. But as a society as a whole, we've all become so disconnected. So the only way we can connect is through cortisol and through fight or flight, because we're constantly drummed, war and all the bad things which are going on the world through news and media. So when we come to train, particularly as a very young person, you want those cortisol hits. And Pilates is experiencing an all-time boom around the world since COVID. And this is a wonderful thing. But like everything in life, there are no positives without negatives. So my expectations is in another 10, 20, 30 years, everything will go full circle. So yes, there's lots of fitness gyms. The fitness gyms jump on the beds and using Pilates reformer as what's called a tilting reflex. So it's an instability reflex, which is fun to do. But my feelings are in 10, 20, 30 years times, when these fitness teachers have had enough, they'll then start to explore the full system, because everything is a connection. It's, not just about the powerhouse. It's the ability to move the arms and legs in connection with the powerhouse. And the reformer is only one piece of the system. There are two, styles, contemporary and classical, in the full apprenticeships. And then I'd say there's fitness and rehabs and lots of other things. But when you really understand the Pilates method as a system, you can really give back to the universe and give back to your client. And our purpose as human beings on the planet, regardless of what you're doing, is to be of service to others. Because once you are of service to others, you not only fulfill yourself, but you help to others to expand from where they are. And if we all have this, lifting each other up, we're never putting each other down.
Yeah, that's very clear. So talk a little bit to us about the connection between Pilates and business. What are other things? What are some techniques that we could use when we're sitting at our desks? But also, how can Pilates help us upscale our business, be more present in our businesses?
The decisions we make every day in our life, Annika, and the way we handle situations, and whether we come from a place of reaction or reflection, are coming from our mindset and our body. Now, the body is always a reflection of the mindset. So there's a beautiful quote, as above, so is below. So when I have a morning routine, like many business entrepreneurs, and it could be journaling, it could be movement, it could be whatever. But when you start your day and when you have a healthy body, you're more likely to make the better decisions, and you're more likely to be in tune with your gut instinct. So our gut is a massive enteric system. And if you put in Google or any search engine, inflammation, ADHD, inflammation, depression, inflammation, anxiety, inflammation, autism, inflammation, cancer, diabetes, heart disease, everything has an inflammatory response. So how we are in the gut is how we are in the brain. So the healthier the body and the healthier the gut, the better informed decisions we can make. And those informed decisions will go in line with healthy core values. So for example, for me, if somebody offered me £100 million to sell sugar, I wouldn't do it, sugary products or, sugary drinks, because I know those chronically inflame people. Not only do they chronically inflame them, but they affect the central nervous system. When the central nervous system is a state of sympathetic dominant, the body is catabolic breakdown, fight or flight, and that's when we're all likely to get dis-ease, disconnection, depression. So I only choose things which are in line with my core values, and that's very important to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that. And I do find that my body has a stress response when I'm not doing something that's in alignment. I also recognize, because of the way my body feels, if I'm doing too many things, spread too thin, not getting enough sleep, not eating healthily enough. As you said, our bodies are completely connected. So sometimes I know I'll have a pain in my back, but I can feel it in my leg. I can feel it in my, in my pinky toe. So it really truly is a full body connection. And when I am not feeling my best, I'm not my best. I don't show up my best when I'm working.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I find, Annika, you going back to Pilates, this is what I feel and what I see and experience with clients in my studio or over Zoom in my everyday life. And this is 30 years experience. When you pay for a class, or whether it's face-to-face or Zoom or online, you actually put value on it. So you're more likely to turn up. When you're putting value on it and you go to those sessions, you can switch off. And once you understand the method and you have a little bit more of a flow, and you're intending whatever, it becomes like a moving meditation. And remember, when we meditate, that's when true healing starts. So it's not just about the movement, it's about the food we consume, but movement is medicine. It keeps all the systems going in the body. And the anatomy world only talked about systems because they dissected the body. There is no system. We were never disconnected. We are one whole bio-emotional human beings. We are psychic, emotional, spiritual, physical, and mental human beings.
I imagine that you talk about a lot of this in your ebook, the Transformation ebook. So I'd love to hear about that.
Well, the transformation ebook I produced is a free ebook for anybody around the world, just to give them the basics, because I cross-train Pilates with weight training and other people who come across it with running and all different things, but they are two different methods. And what we're seeing with the fitness industry at the moment is trying to turn Pilates into like a cable machine. It's got to be used separately. And once you understand the method and you've been attending for a period of time, then the pace and the tempo comes and the Pilates system will become a full body workout. But it's important to understand, the physical body, the mental body, the emotional body. In my ebook, I talk about fats, proteins, and carbohydrates, the importance of water, a little bit of history about Pilates, about body types, because we're all different, Annika. So I'm from an Indian background. My father was Indian, mother was English. If we look at the Quechuas, Red Indians, they would be probably 100% vegan. Whereas if you looked at an Eskimo, they would be 90% protein and fat. So what do you get when you get a Red Indian who marries an Eskimo? You're going to get a mixed type. So everybody is completely individual and different. And the healthier you are, the better you can run a business, the better you can deal with people, and you will attract what you need in life. So there's always a lesson in everything. So you will attract more like-minded people who are also building their business, but also building the universe into a better place. And that's how we will change the world. We have to start with ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to ask you a sequence of random questions. You did mention being Indian, and one of the questions that I have is why being an entrepreneur is second nature to every Indian, because I know it's obviously a huge, huge swath of people, a lot of innovation, a lot of people who are willing to reach out. I get a lot of cold outreach from people who are from that region who want to work, right? And have built up skills. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, that's really interesting, Annika, because I said to you, never let a crisis go to waste. So India, and I don't know the exact population, has billions of people. So it's extremely competitive. The gap between the rich and poor is enormous. So even to go for a job at McDonald's, there are so many hundreds of people who would go for the job. So they see work as a form of service, and, also having purpose, because, it's very important to have purpose each day. Now, what I've noticed is people with no education and people who haven't been able to afford to let their children go to school are fluent in 5 or 6 languages, because they have found out when they become fluent in languages, they can serve Russians, Israelis, Italian, French, English, all these people when they go over to India on holiday, and they can earn money. So as an Indian being brought up in a half Indian house, the expectation is that we will be successful. You'll put the time in and you are grateful for the opportunity. And I am so grateful, because in the West, we complain so much, and it's not to say that we don't have problems. Both US and UK are full of homeless, lots of drugs, lots of social issues, the same as every part in the world, lots of corruption. But I do feel when you come from more Asian backgrounds, you get yourself up. There's no benefit system. If you don't go to work, you don't earn money. It's as simple as that. And, there is no medical health there unless you can afford private. So you don't have a choice. And, this is not always a good thing, but it gives people a drive. So when you've got a big enough dream, you don't have a crisis. So I always say, running a business, I'm never sick, I'm never ill. I'm never sat at home feeling sorry for myself. Yes, I'm going through menopause, but I don't have, the symptoms to stay up. Yes, there's COVID, long COVID, or whatever you want to call it, flu, all the rest of it. But when you are running the business and I am looking after myself, exactly what you said, I'm not ill, I'm up, I'm to the gym, and I'm straight into work and in eating clean. As soon as I go off that ladder, Annika, like you, perhaps have some inflammatory foods, don't get proper sleep, don't get full hydration, sit in my monkey mind at night, that's when I get run down and sick.
Yeah, absolutely. For those entrepreneurs or those people in business who mostly sit at a desk, what are some little tips and tricks that they can weave into their day, even if they only have 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes here and there to get up and move around and just do something active that can help?
Okay, Annika, so environment is everything. So these are my first 3 tips for the environment. You've got to feel like moving. When you're depleted of energy and you're perhaps living on cereal and sugar, it gives you a high and then it gives you a low. So I would always start by having a minimum of 2 liters of water, good quality filtered water, always by your desk. So you're not reaching for coffee and stimulants. I would always have plants on my desk because they're going to take my eyes away from the screen, and I've actually got some prana and some life force, and I would focus on simple things. So I say to people, every time you get up to boil the kettle or go to the photocopier, put your hands on your shoulders, do 10 squats. As you're sitting at the desk, you can be doing shoulder exercises, neck exercises, but I don't overgive people. So for me, 15 minutes is too long. 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes, at lunchtime, and 5 minutes at the evening. And importantly, when you have your lunch, take yourself away from the computer screen, try and get outside or sit in the car, sit in a quiet place and try and practice slow, mindful eating. Even when you go on the toilet, if you have a little bit of a break sitting on the toilet, you can practice the 4 square breath. So that's breathing in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, exhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4. So number 1 is environment. Number 2 is just simple things like squats and basic stretches on the chair. And number 3 is the way you eat, is very important. And setting your boundaries.
Oh. Setting your boundaries. That is one that I think many people have to work on. It can be really hard when you do think, you have the best intentions, you're leading to serve people, which takes us back to what you said in the beginning, which I strongly believe we're here to help serve other people. But it can be hard then to know when to say no and when not to, which then can put you into situations that decrease your health because you have more stress or you're eating the wrong foods and you're staying up late and your mind is going crazy because you're thinking about all the things that you have to do for that when you should have just said no and made it very easy on yourself.
Well, you can't give to others until you've given to yourself, Annika. So a life of service is very important, that you have to make sure you're healthy yourself. So people are not going to like what I'm going to say. So my mother passed away last year and she had 10 days on end of life. On the 10 days of end of life, I made sure I was up every day early, moving for 30 minutes, did some meditation. I actually taught 1 to 2 hours every day in the morning to make sure I had purpose and I could keep going and I wasn't stopping everything. Then all my food prep was done. Then I went in lunchtime or early afternoon to the hospital and sat with my mother till the end of the evening, because the food in the hospitals in the UK is all inflammatory, probably like other places. And I made sure when I was there, I did meditation, I did sound healing frequencing, I did singing to express myself so I didn't hold things in my chest. I tried to do touching and things with my mother, massaging her face, touching her hair and doing tapping and all different things. So I had to be fit, strong and healthy to, give my best to her, but the most important person was to give my best to me first. There was no point in me getting run down sick and ill.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Now, talk to us. I'm intrigued about your statements that we all have a superpower and also that you can turn your business around in 21 days. Because usually when I have people on who make statements like that, it's about a business system, on the computer, or it's not about the practice of other techniques.
Well, this is really interesting, Annika. So there's actually a study paper on a surgeon who did amputees. So the reason we have this quote going around 21 days to create a habit is the brain didn't recognize until 21 days that its limb had been amputated. So it went to move. So if there's this beautiful quote saying we can't solve the problem with the same thinking that caused it. And that's by Albert Einstein. So if we approach problems in the business as Annika, as Nisha, the same thing happens over and over again. And we can see it in other people. So we see it in our friends, our relatives, and our loved ones. And we think, hey, why did they do that? I can see why the same thing keeps happening. They keep repeating the same behavior, but we can't see it in us. So what you have to do is not so much make change in yourself, but do different habits. So I do 3 things with clients, and I've just written an article, Why Chopsticks Saved My Life. So I've just got my hand on top of using chopsticks after many years, and I've just come back from South Korea. So when you learn a different skill, so I learned to use chopsticks, guess what? It gives you a different way of perceiving things in your mind. I also get clients to swap their knife and fork around to the opposite hand, so it's more difficult. Sit at a different place. Also using feng shui, set things up differently, furniture in the house, have a clear out. And tomorrow I'm going to be teaching, and I'm going to be wearing a label saying Paula Radcliffe. Paula Radcliffe was a very, very famous, and she still is, English long distance runner. So if I teach the session as Nisha, the same things happen. I'm putting it Paula Radcliffe. So my business is presently going through great change, because if I stay what I'm doing, the longer I stay on the wrong train, the more expensive it is to get back home. So what I'm doing isn't working enough to service the building, to service the expenses, to service the clients, to service the staff. So I have to change what I'm doing. And the way I've done it is to change the little things. And when something goes wrong, Annika, guess what? We want to go back into our old habits, but you can't do that. But it's easier to go back than it is to go forward. So this is why we can all change, but we have to look at doing different things, search out different people, amazing podcasts like yourself, learn different skills, take other things off the plate in order to apply different skills. Because it's, as you said, if you're doing things all the time, nothing works. You've got to give up one thing to start another.
Yeah, that's such a great point. So you're talking about making incremental changes, because as you start getting used to making incremental changes, then you might be ready for a bigger positive change as well.
Yeah. Here we go, Annika. And that's it. So remember, we are all, a profanity of the environment that which we grew up in, the peer group around us, which was schooling, education, and religion, and the circumstances in which we live. We become a product. If you want to change, you can change, but you've got to, get yourself out of the environment, change your peer group, find places where you can express yourself, be prepared to travel to different places to meet like-minded communities. There is so much support out there. Even if you're sick and you can't walk, you can make contact with people, and you cannot change from a place of poor health. And this is why, as any entrepreneur or any business person or anybody in general in life has to start, I feel, with the food, because change takes a lot of energy, and you can't do it when you're burnt out, when you're tired, when you're wiped out. And it's little changes with the food that gives you the vitality, which gives you the energy, which gives you the growth, which makes you stand up strong to do mastery, so that we can all become leaders rather than followers.
Yeah, absolutely. What website would you like people to go to learn more? Because I know you have a few different businesses. To learn more about you, to download your ebooks. We didn't even talk about the one about getting flat abdominals, but that's one I definitely want to download.
So it's www.yoga-anatomy.com, but I'm very easy to find. They can just put in YouTube or anywhere on Google, Nisha Football, Nisha Pilates, Nisha Rugby, because my background was also football and rugby. And I have so much free stuff to give away. Annika, your podcast is full of golden jewels of nuggets. So just listening to podcasts from people who, create, because we all want to become creators rather than consumers. We want you see somebody doing an ebook. Perhaps I could inspire somebody to do so. I've got so much free stuff on YouTube. There's tons of articles I've written. I've written over 500 blogs in the last 30 years, which are a bevy of information. There's tons of stuff, that is out there for people. So they can just stick my name in. And also I will send you the details, Annika. And if you could have put them at the bottom of the podcast, that would be great for the free ebook.
Of course, absolutely. And you'd mentioned something that we didn't discuss, which is your work in professional football and rugby. So can you talk a little bit about that and that part of your journey?
Yes. So it was a long time ago, probably about 25 to 30 years ago when I first started it. So where I live is a town called St. Helens, and it's famous for its Super League rugby, which is all over the world, very, very popular in New Zealand, Australia, places like that. And we had this amazing coach who came over from Australia called Nigel Ashley Jones. And I am now 54, and it was when I was 27. Australia was way ahead, and they were doing Pilates, they were doing apparatus, and he wanted the boys to do some sort of rehab. He approached me. I taught the team, which are the Saints, and from there it just spiraled. It spiraled to all the rugby league teams across the Northwest. I went on tour with the England RFL. I then got into professional football, starting at the bottom with Oldham Athletics, building right up to Man City. I then had many players coming to me personally at the studios, and that's really where the background comes from. And it's not the ability to wear these people out through reps, sets and loads. With anybody, it doesn't matter whether you're a pensioner, whether you've got Parkinson's, or whether it's a professional footballer. It's to look at that person, be a better listener, see what they're communicating verbally, what his story is their body telling, and what do they need, there and then that day.
Yeah, fantastic. And I think that is, if you can work with professional athletes and actors and singers and celebrities, and they're all coming to you for this expertise, not just in a physicality, but in mind, body, and soul, then absolutely everybody in business should apply these principles as well.
We should, as human beings, whether you're in business, whether you're a mum, a dad, a grandma, a grandpa, or a child, we should all be applying these principles. And it only takes 10 years of us to change society to change the last 100 years. So we can see the destruction which is going on in the world. We can see how we're all becoming polarized. And remember, this is why food is so important. We have a greater ability to look at the world and the bigger picture without making a polarized opinion. And we all need to become creators rather than consumers. So if we all work together as tribe, as originally it was done in society, where we all support each other, we're coming from a place of health. The last 100 years, the next 100 years will change because it only takes 10 years.
Yeah, fantastic. Nisha, this has been such a great conversation. I am inspired with every conversation that I have, and this one, I'm inspired to continue implementing little things throughout my day, because I am behind a computer looking at screens, talking to people all day, but I also need to get up and move and do things other than just walk my dogs. So thank you for being here and giving us all some inspiration, some easy things to think about. It doesn't take that much time. As Nisha said, take a few minutes, do some stretches, do some squats, walk around, just have some movement in your day as a starting point to your journey for health.
Thank you, Annika. And I'm going to finish with one beautiful quote with a great business book, which many of your business people will know, which is The Richest Man in Babylon by George Clason. And the quote is, "Our acts can be no more than our thoughts." So our acts can be no more than our thoughts. So what you think is what you become. So we have to be careful, because what we think, we're putting that out in thought forms on the universe.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. Perfect quote to end this. Thank you again, Nisha. Thank you to everybody who's listening to this episode. We got some great value, and you download the ebook so you can find out some simple ways that you can integrate other practices into your day-to-day life so that you can be healthier, you can have a better mindset for your business, for your personal life, and for everything that is going to come about in the future.
Thank you, Annika.
Thanks for listening or watching to this episode of Your Brand Amplified. Don't forget to leave us a rating or review on your favorite podcast listening platform. And if you want to learn more, check us out at yourbrandamplified.com.